Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Leader to Leader podcast, the show where we invite executives, authors, and experts in leadership to share what they've learned to help us all become better at leading ourselves, our teams, and organizations. I'm your host, Tom Athenour, and this episode is brought to you by the StarQuest Group. You sometimes get to the point where you're just tired of the workplace drama. It oftentimes, for many of us, can feel like we're just managing a classroom rather than running the business or trying to achieve the results that we're trying to get after. It's the conflict, it's the gossip, it's the people not doing their jobs, it's the personality clashes, and somehow it tends to pull everything down. You know, it's not just annoying from a leader's perspective, it's actually quite expensive. In fact, workplace drama and unresolved conflict cost U.S. companies an estimated $350 billion every year in lost productivity. So what do you do about it? In this episode, we introduce you to a practical model that helps leaders assess and diagnose workplace drama. We're going to look at what are the drivers and the players and who's involved, and then what do you do about it? How do you apply a clear, intentional action coaching to manage the drama so it doesn't manage you? My guest is Donna Zajonc, co-founder of the Center for the Empowerment Dynamic. Before becoming a master certified coach in 2001, she was actually in state politics. This is interesting. She was the nominee for Oregon's Secretary of State and has been a CEO of a multi-store food retailer based in Portland. So she's no stranger to organizational drama. What's unique about her is not only being a coach, but she's always been deeply curious about the inner landscape of the human mind. And she actually joined her late husband, David, as co-founder of the Center for Empowerment Dynamic. Her Empowerment Dynamic books, known as TED, have sold over 250,000 copies worldwide. I guarantee that you're going to love this model. It's simple and yet very powerful. So let's jump into my conversation with Donna. Donna, welcome to the podcast. This is fantastic to have you.
Thank you, Tom. Great to be invited.
Oh, absolutely. I've given a little bit of your background in my intake introduction, but tell me a little bit more. How did you get into this work of integrating psychology and business and the work that you're doing today? So share a little bit of that.
Well, I would say from the beginning, my undergraduate degrees in nursing, I went into mental health nursing. So I've been in the world of human development, I would say all of my life, with a couple of exceptions. I grew up in a small town in the Missouri Ozarks, and my family were entrepreneurs, small little stores. And so I grew up with a business sense, and in the sense that you are opening the door 6 days a week, inviting customers in, customer service. My parents were fabulous. So I had that witnessing. And so there were a couple of forays during my mid years where I got into small fast food businesses, frozen yogurt and that sort of thing. I loved it. I mainly had employees under 20. But by my late 40s, early 50s, I found professional coaching, and that's the space I've been in now for 25 years as a master certified coach for over 10 years. And we can say more as we go on, but it's just my DNA, both in terms of interested in human development and as well as business.
Yeah, that's fascinating. You know I've found to be so interesting is the work that you are doing today, and we're going to get into it here in a moment, but really how to integrate the mental side, the inner game, as we oftentimes call it, with the workplace in helping our leaders be more effective at managing some of what's going on out there that may not be pure skills, business, that type of thing, but
Yes.
more of the people relational side of the aspect. So,
Well, life has gotten so fast. I often say that we human beings, our bodies, our psyche was not built for this speed of life. And it is rapidly increasing. And we all now have I think, a loss of hope that it's going to change. And
yeah.
there's a really intense feeling that the speed, this chaos, this uncertainty is even going to get faster. So I think there's more and more people looking for help and support in their business, in their personal life, in their families and relationships. And to some extent, that's good news for those of us in the human development field. But in
Sure.
another sense, we see a lot of suffering and a lot of worry, a lot of stress.
Yeah, most definitely. That being able to cultivate more capabilities to deal with that uncertainty. And we're certainly seeing the organizational stress showing up in leaders that we're working with around stress levels going up, more reactivity and that sort of thing. So
Mhm.
as all of our listeners know out there, we've been focusing on the first part of the year of 26 around how do you focus on yourself as an individual professional, as a leader. And so we had Lisa Leahy talking about immunity to change. And what I thought would be so great as a follow up to Lisa is to have you share a bit about this TED framework that you co created with David Wommeldorf a
Mhm.
number of years ago. And so
Yes.
I just have to uh, say that I met David at a group of coaches, professional coaches, years and years ago. And a good friend of mine had dropped off The Power of TED, this book that was this little book that I just devoured it. I read it and I loved it. It just spoke to me. And so I'm at this meeting and I'm sitting next to this guy and I said, I don't know how I got into it, but I said, I read this great book just the other day. It's called The Power of TED. And he looked at me and he goes, "Oh, I know it quite well. I wrote it." And I go, "No, you're David Wommeldorf." And David Emerald wrote the book, and he goes, "No, that's me. That was my pen name or my author name." And so we got a laugh out about that. But that's how I met um, David. And so
Mhm.
talk a little bit about here because David is no longer here with us,
David's
and
no
that's a
longer
and
here.
you're carrying the legacy forward.
Yes, and this last just 8 months ago, David died very suddenly of a heart attack, and we'll share a lot more, I'm sure, since you knew David very well,
Yeah,
because that went
yeah.
on. That was your first meeting, and we'll say more about the Power of TED book that turned out to be our life's work together. It came out in '06, and interesting enough, the 10-year anniversary in 2016 of the Power of TED, the foreword was written by your previous guest, Lisa Leahy.
Yes, yes.
So this, thank you for having me on and honoring this work and share more. So first of all, it's not TED Talks. Lots of people go Power of TED. Oh, you mean TED? No, TED stands for the Empowerment Dynamic, and it is a framework. And David, one of his gifts was that he could make complex ideas simple. He had this ability to synthesize. His background was certainly human development, organizational coaching, facilitation. And in its simplest form, and it is simple in one way and very profound in its underlying nuance. But so, should we get into really what the framework
Let's
is and
do
the
it.
card?
Yeah,
Okay, so I
yeah,
think I
yeah.
can explain it here in just 2 or 3 minutes. But what
Okay,
was
yeah.
Dr. Stephen Cartman in 1968 came out of the transactional analysis movement with Eric Byrne, and he named, Dr. Cartman named the three primary ways we human beings go reactive when we're under stress or we don't like something. He named the primary role as we fall into this victim idea that we're victim to the world, we are hopeless, and we say to ourselves, "Poor me." It's not always conscious, but this is what we can take on. Dr. Cartman said, when there is this victim-y mindset, then there's always a second role, the persecutor he named. The persecutor in Dr. Cartman's language was the problem. It could be a situation, but it's usually a relationship, a partner. It could go on and on, but the victim looks at that persecutor as the problem, and the persecutor, Dr. Cartman says, looked at the victim role and says, "Poor you, and I will do anything not to be a victim. So I'm going to lean in and really take charge. I'm going to take control." And just by the name of the persecutor, you have that sense of taking charge, leaning against, strong fist. Can be very nuanced, many faces of how one takes control. But now, what Dr. Cartman said is once that dynamics is set up between the victim and the persecutor, a third role always shows up. And what is that one, Tom? What did Dr. Cartman say was that third role?
It was
The
the
rescue,
rescuer.
the rescue,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
helper. And thank goodness we want to help. What he described is a leaning in and saying, "Oh, please let me handle this conflict. I have so many ideas." Becomes the hero in the fairy tales, and that rescuer, victim, persecutor is what Dr. Cartman named. Well, David, going through psychotherapy and loss of a marriage, unable to have children, he went into therapy and he discovered this drama triangle. And he said, "Oh my goodness, I've lived my life on this drama triangle." Later, after thinking about it, literally a couple of days later, decades later, he was in the
Yes.
middle of a coaching session at Notre Dame and he had the epiphany working with a gentleman. Well, what's the positive alternative to the drama triangle? What are the parts of us that
Yeah.
are the good parts, the skilled parts, the parts that are creative? And just bottom line it, because I know we're going to get into more of the details. David went to the whiteboard in the middle of the session, drew a new triangle. The victim becomes the rescuer. Excuse me. The victim becomes the creator of
Yes.
our own lives, that we take responsibility and choose. The opposite, the antidote to the persecutor, becomes the challenger, the one that can tell the truth without putting down and blaming. The opposite of the rescuer becomes the coach, not necessarily a professional coach, but the supportive role in the dynamic, knows how to support and invite others to grow and to develop. So the creator, challenger, coach, David and I named that new dynamic the empowerment dynamic. So we have the drama
Okay.
triangle and we have the
Yeah.
empowerment dynamic. And these two triangles, when you put them side by side, people immediately we just ask, where are you on the triangles? And it's an ability to self observe in a rapid way that a lot of frameworks can get too complex.
Yes.
These two triangles can be very simple and yet endlessly nuanced. So that's a quick explanation, and we can go deeper with it, however you choose.
Yeah, no, that's great. So some of our listeners out there have gone through some of our leadership programs where they understand that above the line and below the line. So if you think about what I found to be so brilliant, and I love the simplicity, but the depth of this model is that, kind of think of out there is sort of that below the line. You have the drama triangle, which was, the victim, the rescuer, the persecutor. And what David brought to Karpman's work was to really add this whole empowerment dynamic. It's a shift, as how do you make the shift as opposed to living in that drama triangle, which can
Yes.
be just incredibly disempowering and miserable and exhausting, right?
Lots of suffering. And when
Yeah.
he started realizing the epiphany, we started doing some research because I was aware of the drama triangle in my psychiatric nursing background. And when he first told me about it, I said, "Is this original work?" And because we were just getting to know each other, we just started dating. This was in '03.
Yeah.
And he said, "Oh, no, no, the drama triangle has been around." I said, "Oh, I know about the drama triangle. I mean this other triangle." He says, "Well, maybe it's just something I've been thinking about." I said, "Let's really dig into this because the research around how psychotherapists use the drama triangle, they just said, don't do these roles. They're toxic. You can get really stuck. So just don't do them." What the magic of what David named, that's already out there, I mean, he just put form to it, is that we have
Yeah.
this better part of us. We wouldn't be here talking if there wasn't this creative part of human beings to be able to create and make choice and to take charge of our lives and to have inner agency. David was able to name that in a new triangle, and it rapidly helps people to escape when they're stuck racing around the drama triangle. Instead of just saying, don't do it, we now, our whole life's work in the book, as you know from reading it, has lots of tips, TED tips on how to escape that drama triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you give me some examples of workplace situations where there might be the rescuer, and what is the rescuer? Give me a typical kind of situation where that rescuer, the person that might fall into that, and the conditions, and where do
Mm,
they seek out rescuers in the workplace? Because because the episode that we're recording is very much focused on stop rescuing, start coaching, right? So we're going to get to that, but kind of paint me a picture of what that actually, so our listeners can identify it as to
Okay.
what might be happening in their
Yeah,
places.
that's a great question because we do work with organizations and teams and leaders. And an example might be because a leader cares so much and they're responsible to get things done. Let's say they have a project on their team that needs to be done by Friday, and they've delegated to the team to do X, Y, Z. But it's goes home Monday night, comes back Tuesday and says, I'm just not trusting my team to get it done. I'm going to take charge of this. And whatever that is, they work on it the next day and they put it on the chair or send an email and say,
Yeah.
okay, to my team, I've decided I'm going to do it this way and that way, all in the interest of help, all in the interest of getting the project done by Friday or whatever the time is. By stepping in and trying to be helpful to their team, they overstep. They interrupt the empowering delegation they had just given a few days earlier. It's in the name of helping, it's in the name of wanting to get things done. But this impulse to overdo, this
Mm.
impulse to do for what is others to do and to take responsibility for shows up in the workplace, certainly at home and personalized, but in the workplace,
Yeah.
absolutely. And there's real cost to that. There's real cost to that kind of overdoing and, um, yeah, taking responsibility for others. One of the main costs is that it breaks trust. The person that thought they were responsible, trying to do a good job, now is interrupted by the one that's overdoing.
Yeah.
It may
Yeah.
not just be a boss, it may be a coworker. So, I think that's just a very typical example of what goes on within teams and relationships in companies.
Yeah. I had one particular leader within the supply chain functional area where he was taking on more. So he would do more work at night because he was cognizant of his team being overworked and overstressed. So he didn't want to overstress them. They were frustrated. And so he would take on more. It was coming from a good. So is that an example of where he was coming in with the good intention, but he was really in that rescuer
Yeah.
because he was creating them to not step up their game because he
Yes.
didn't want to overburden them? Is that an example of a rescuer victim type of relationship? Because in the case of the persecutor, it was clearly some of the things going on with supply chain and some of the
Mhm.
tariffs and whatnot. Is that a good example of where he was trying to do
I
the
think
right thing, but it didn't play out
I think
well?
it's a very good example, and the intention of those of us when we slip into the rescue role. Again, this is not who we are. There are personas and behaviors and habits that we take on.
Yeah,
And one of the identities of the rescuer is to be a helper, is to be a pleaser. And there's various different stories we tell ourselves about what does helping and mean. In that example, he may have been so focused on the stress of his team that he's literally has an antenna looking for that stress, which triggers him to do more. And what's really going on psychologically there, I am guessing, is that he wants his team to be a success. But what
yes,
does success look like? Not having stress. So I'll take it on, and that's one of the cardinal signs of a rescuer. In that there is a belief, there is an identity that the future of the world rests on my shoulders. I'm being a little
yeah, yeah,
dramatic here, but I'm a
yeah,
recovering rescuer. And because I spent years in what I now call serial rescuing, I just kind of a funny story, Tom. One of the ways I woke up to this is I was in my 40s and I woke up, turned over, and the sun was starting to shine in the window. And I heard this little voice say, "Oh my goodness, the sun is rising without my help." And I was so shocked by that. whisper, I looked at, what is that part of me saying? Is that I had become so used to helping that the woes of the world were on my shoulder. I've been in nursing, psychiatric nursing. I'd spent many time family. I had a real pattern of helping as my go-to way, the way I meet the world. And again, isn't that fabulous that we
Yes.
care? It's
Yeah.
when it's
Yeah.
our only way that we meet the world that we've reduced our repertoire of being able to be with many different situations,
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
different ways to be with life's challenges. And so that is one of the things we say to ourselves. The other is, if I don't do it, it won't get done. That's another cardinal sign of being in that rescuer role. And so, what message does that give to a team or to a coworker? What what when you're working with someone and you might pick up that there is a sense about them that they're the only ones that can do it? How do you feel when you're in a situation like that, Tom?
Oh, absolutely. It's I'm gonna, hey, you know what? They know what they're doing, so I just disengage. I will say, okay, they'll own it. They'll make sure it gets across the finish line. And so I take less ownership in that.
There you go. And in a world of
Yeah.
collaboration and a world of team
It doesn't
development
work.
where the patriarchal hierarchical system is disintegrating, and collaboration
Yep.
and bringing out the
Totally.
genius of everyone, because then you're not even engaged, you're not even thinking about that project. That's the message, and that's the cost when someone overdoes. Might get done, but here's the thing: when we're fully in that rescuer role, Tom, eventually we are going to always feel like a victim.
Absolutely. I was just gonna say, because then the resentment builds and then you roll into that victim role because the
Yes.
persecutor now is the situation. It might even be the persecutor is now the victim. The persecutor is now the victim that was creating more havoc for you. And then you moved into the victim role and then you look for a rescuer, right? Because you always have to have the rescuer with the victim and the persecutor in that relationship too,
It
right?
keeps it all
So,
going, and you just beautifully
yeah.
described the dynamic and why
Yeah.
it's really, we say why it's toxic and why it's
Yeah.
hard to escape it unless you can see the dynamic happening, which again is the beauty of what Dr. Cartman named and what David offered as an escape. Dr. Cartman named our reactive roles so we could see them faster and stop and pause and choose differently. um, that dynamic is so true with a rescuer. There's deep costs on both ends, and especially in a world of burnout. There's deep suffering in the world, especially in the world of business, of this stress and overdoing. Overcaring is another way to talk
Yes.
about it.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think that's well played. That's a good description. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, years ago, I have to tell you, Donna, years ago when I read the book originally, and then I was so fascinated by it. I came home and I showed it to my wife. We did this like a whiteboard thing. I was drawing all this stuff out, and so it just clicked because she's in the counseling therapy world as well, and um, and so that was a good thing, but also a bad thing because I was just laughing because it wasn't too long ago. I was in the next courtyard, Marriott courtyard, and I was complaining about the same pictures on the wall, and it's the same thing everywhere I go, whatever city it is, and I was just in a victimhood mindset. And I called her and she goes, you know what? That's great. Why don't you call me back in the morning when you're not in that victim role? Which I thought, dang, I was looking for a rescuer and she didn't take the bait, so she's got that formula down and she knows how to work that with me. But in essence, it basically said, okay, so what do I want to have different? Which is the power of what David and you brought is this
Mhm.
empowerment dynamic. So let's kind of shift above the line of what do leaders do where they sense that this drama is taking place and maybe they're in the victim or the persecutor or maybe they're in the rescuer side. How do I start to shift
Yeah.
to to the other side to
Yeah.
change the system up, right?
Well, I love that story. And what's the old TV program says pass or play, Family Feud or something like
Oh,
that?
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
She said pass. I'm not going to play, Tom.
not going to
But
play this game. I get your drill.
that's one
Yeah.
of the best ways to get out of this. And for me, the role that I have discovered that I slip into the victim mindset is when I'm complaining. And you were complaining about the artwork and recognize I feel a victim to this lack of creativity in this hotel. I don't know what you said to yourself, but you
Yeah. Oh,
made up
yeah.
some story.
Yeah. It was like I was trying to feel sorry for myself for having to be on the road. And, I've been doing this for a long time. And so, but it's not a good thing. And I don't know whether this is true or not, but I found that when I'm tired, I tend to fall more into the victim. So when I'm
Yes.
not taking care of myself or I'm not working out and in my routine, I have a more likelihood of falling into that victimhood.
Yeah,
So,
that's brilliant to recognize that. We call that more trigger intelligent in our
yeah,
work.
okay, sure.
So
Yeah.
to really anticipate and to plan for those times can be a situation, can be a lot of people say when they have short of time, fatigued, sometimes a stuffy room can trigger them, a particular person, body ailment. When you can learn after you pause and really practice self-observing, you can have those. So that's one thing I would say to really help move out of the drama triangle is become more trigger awareness of how you have a pattern of going into it. The other thing that I think is very helpful in how we teach the work is to notice what may be your default role to enter the drama triangle.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, what we mean by that is so for me, my default is I enter into the rescuer.
Yeah.
If I'm
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and that's the situation, what's going on here? We're uncomfortable with something that we're focusing on that we don't like and we don't want. And what emotions and feelings arise when we focus on what we don't want and don't like? Some form of anxiety, fear, I'll just say energy depleting emotions. Uh,
Yes.
Upset, angry, pissed off, we could depression. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of energy depleting emotions, and they arise when we lock on a problem and we say, "I don't want this." But then what do? We react to the emotion that we don't like. We don't like feeling uncomfortable. Whatever energy, fear based, anxiety, depleting energy arises, we do something to try to manage that. But we tell ourselves we're just focusing on the problem. I just want to solve
Okay.
this problem. It could be a problem at work, but usually it's a relationship problem, it's something else. And that cycle is huge to recognize to get out of this drama triangle, Tom. And why it's so huge is because we in the Western world are fixated on solving problems. We have risen up through the corporate ladder by being a great problem solver. We're really working harder and harder to manage our war within us about whatever anxiety feeling has arisen. So when we can see what role we tend to enter in the drama triangle to manage this dynamic I just outlined, for me, I become a helper. Oh, let me help. Let me come up with a zillion ideas. I know you're having too much to do right now. I'll do it for you. All the language of a helper rescuer kicks in for me. When I notice it, I have two or three strategies. And the first one is noticing the urge to take
Okay.
over, to
Okay. Yeah.
suggest.
Yeah.
I used to more and more give advice. My adult
Yeah.
children
Yeah.
tell you that okay. So I
Yeah.
see that coming. I literally bite my lip. I stay silent, which is really hard for a rescuer.
As opposed to jumping in and trying to fix it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm
Yeah.
I'm working to notice the urge in my body
Yeah.
before it arises. What is that
Yeah.
energy just before the urge arises that evokes the jumping in with great ideas? Because I always have great
Okay.
ideas. That's what I've convinced
Yeah.
myself of as a rescuer. So You sounded like you enter maybe taking a risk here, because most people don't like to admit that they enter the drama triangle through the victim door primarily. But
Oh
don't
yeah.
you?
I mean,
You do?
I will fall. I mean, I'll open that door, and then on the other side is I will uh, open the door on the rescuer. So I have some rescuer types of tendencies where I want to try to alleviate that, and even with my kids who are now adults, 29 and 26, when they were in high school, they'd come, this teacher's doing that and this coach did that and blah 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 blah, and I had a tendency to want to come in there and and sort of solve it and kind of give them tools on how they go in and talk about it.
Mhm.
And then after the TED thing, I completely changed my approach to saying, okay, yeah, well, I've been there before. What are you going to do about it different? And
Perfect.
it
Bingo.
shifted the whole.
Yeah.
So it applies to kids as well. But yes,
Oh,
you absolutely identified which doors I tend to jump through. Yep,
okay.
you got it.
Well, and
Yep,
see what happens though is we flip it so fast. That's why once we enter into it, just like our earlier example of, we just keep racing around it. But if you can observe your tendency to be the default, that's really going to accelerate your self observing. So let's talk about the persecutor, because I have a couple of good friends that admit that they go into the persecutor role. And when I say admit, is that it's pretty easy to admit you're a rescuer and helper because of the cultural accolades we get to
sure.
be helpers. But
Yeah,
especially in, I would say in the United States, it used to be when David and I first started doing this work, when we would do a presentation and talk about the victim, people would say, "I'm not a victim. I know how to pull myself up by the bootstraps. I know how to make, creator in my life." Well, in the last few years, being a victim has become an art form. And we're all feeling like we're victimized by something. Oh, let me make sure I really clarify here the
okay.
difference. I should have done this at the top of our time together. The difference between victimhood and victimization.
Okay, good. Good.
We all have experience of being victimized, victimization. Somebody cuts us off in traffic. Somebody's really rude to us in the grocery line. I mean, that is a sense of being victimized.
You're
What this
attacked.
work
Yeah.
is about,
Yeah.
attacked,
Yeah.
truly crime, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
health issues. With this work that we're talking about is an antidote to victimhood and
Okay. Kind of like a
identity.
victim mindset too would
A
be
victim
falling into
mindset
that.
and
Yep. Yeah.
identity. And we
Okay.
know
Sure.
many people that have had terrible trauma and victimization, but they're victim. There's nothing about them that is a victimhood. They are creators and they choose life and take responsibility for their life, their thoughts. So I just want to make that clear here.
Okay.
It's
Good. Good distinction.
very
Yes,
important.
that's really important to underscore that. Yeah. Yeah. So one thing, Donna, is I want to have our listeners kind of, if you think about, we're still in that drama triangle, which is the rescuer, persecutor, and the victim. What
Mhm.
I heard from you also too is that there's a big central target called the problem. It's very problem oriented, and what we slip into these different roles is we're trying to manage the emotions wrapped around that particular problem. That's what we're trying to sort of solve. Am I
That's right.
understanding? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Okay.
very correct. And so, what has occurred after David wrote the book, The Power of Ted, and we just published a few copies, and 20 years later, we're still selling literally thousands a month. It became our life's work. We had no idea how it'd resonate with it. And one of the key things is people want to know, okay, now I know about it. How do I get out of the drama triangle? How do I understand to prevent it? And as you said, what David offered is what's above the waterline. And the big teaching here is the difference between problem focused and outcome focused.
Okay.
Let me quickly, because this is the key that we teach in our trainings and our writings of how to interrupt these patterns, these reactive old patterns that are not skillful. And the mindsets have a continuum of, yes, there's a problem here. I need to go fix. There's all kinds of problems, but what's the outcome? For the purpose of what are we addressing this issue? So let's say a team member, I'm coaching someone and they say, I want to be a good listener. Great. Yeah. Why is that? Well, because my people come in and tell me I don't listen to them. Okay. Well, and that's a problem. I want to fix that problem. So as we work with that, what are you going to do? I'm going to read a book on listening.
Right.
And so it comes very transactional. I have a problem to fix. My team says I'm not a good listener. As we work with them, what's the outcome you really want here? And it may take a while for that person to get to the outcome as I want to deeply connect with my people. So with more coaching, I am a connector that listens and trusts my people. So
Uh-huh.
to me, that is the key here as a coach, to work with what is the desire that's beyond the problem focus. If we're simply focusing on the problem and what we don't like and don't want, I don't want people complaining to me that I'm not a good listener. If I
Yeah.
coach them towards that problem, I'm just going to be reinforcing how upset he is at himself that he gets this feedback. When we work with what's on the other side, if this problem didn't exist, that's staring me in the face, what would you really have? What would you do? How would you be? And that's where we get to the outcome. Do you really care about that outcome? If they say hell yes, then now that's what we work towards. How does that make you feel when you think about that outcome being the sole focus of your life? I feel passionate, inspired. Now the energies are uplifting. And now there's renewal and action for baby steps. And this is how you keep living in the empowerment dynamic of creator, challenger, coach.
Okay.
The problem focus tees up the reactivity of victim, persecutor,
Yes.
rescuer.
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely. So we saw this play out, and I think that I want to underscore something that you mentioned around changing the whole energy level. I think you kind of talked about that. Then when you move to that empowerment dynamic, a leader can change the energy level even within like a team system. Because we watched this one leader that we were working with, and we challenged that person to try this shift. And so their team was very focused on the same problem. They've been dealing with it for weeks, and there was just like they felt like they were spinning
Yes.
around this problem. And when she said the simple question of, okay, team, let's do a quick timeout. Okay, pause for a second. What are we trying to accomplish here? What do we want?
Yes.
It changed the whole energy level.
Isn't that
That's what you're
magical?
talking about. It's a
Yes, this is
shift.
exactly what we're talking about. Yes.
And so what
And
she did was, so when she was trying, so it was she moving into kind of, I want to make sure our listeners are understanding the top part. So it's kind of hit them for me again, creator, and then there's a coach, and then there's a challenger. Is that
challenger.
the top
So the
part? Yeah.
antidote to persecutor is challenger, the truth teller. Yes.
The truth teller. Okay. Got it. But it's a framing, right? You
It's a
can look at
framing.
that.
You know, the persecutor wants to take charge and wants to maybe tell the truth, but their intention is what? To take
To tear
charge, to
somebody down, kind of
tell,
criticize
to
maybe.
blame
Yeah.
who caused
Yeah.
this, to put
Okay.
down. Because what
Got
are
it.
they trying to do? They're trying to manage their anxiety about the chaos and the uncertainty.
Okay.
The victim says, "Oh, I think I'm hopeless. I don't think I'll ever get what I want." They step back, say, "Poor me," when we're in that role. Remember, we play all three of them. But when we are in that victim role, we step back and let go of our personal power and inner agency. When we're in the persecutor, we lean in, we take charge, and we say,
Uh-huh. Yep.
I know how to do this. And people just need to listen to me. And when they don't, you'll blame them, and on and on. We have a lot of that going on in our leadership and in politics right now. The
Yes.
rescuer says, when they don't, they see that they let me help. Let me help. And they're all based on problem focused
Yeah.
reactivity, depleting emotions. The empowerment dynamic, victim to creator. So, what are the two primary words I can offer here, Tom, to help shift when you see yourself in that victimy mindset. And you've already
Yeah.
did it. You told us the two primary ones. Well, what do I want here? I know what I don't want. I don't want this old stale artwork. I know what I
Right.
do
Right.
want. Okay. And what is mine to do? Because
Okay.
when we're in the victim mindset, we don't take responsibility. To help move out of that, the creator says, what is mine to do? And it might be walk down the street and find an art gallery. I don't know, making it up.
Yeah.
But you take responsibility for your choices, your thinking, and your behavior and your actions. So
Okay.
what is mine to do, and what do I want? Those two
That is
questions are going to
okay.
help
That's
you
a
get out of
really those are really good questions because what is mine to do gets you to zero in on, okay, so what is it that I need to really own in the
there. Hmm.
situation? And it cuts through some of that distraction, the noise of all this other stuff going on and gets you real
Yes.
focused on what is it that you want to move towards.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
awesome.
So let's look at the rescuer to coach shift.
Okay.
All right. So again, the rescuer, the future of the world rests on our shoulders, and if it's going to get done, I got to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And there is a hidden arrogance in that point of view that I know best. And I remember the moment I was heartbroken. I was even shocked. I wouldn't ever want the word arrogant to describe me.
Yeah.
But there is this background whisper that says, "Oh, I know how to do this." And I'll get it done more. I'm a 3 in the Enneagram. I'll get it done faster, more efficiently. So for the rescuer to coachship, the important question is, how do you see the other? Do you see them as capable? Do you see them
Mm.
as a creator in their own right, whether they're acting like it or know it? Do you trust them? And when the answer to those are no, you have justification to step in and take charge or to
Okay.
offer advice. Maybe I'd say it that way. So, how do I see the other? It's huge, Tom.
Okay. Sure. Sure.
And then the second question is, how do I take care of myself?
Okay.
And that
Sure.
might seem contradictory here, but rescuers, when we're firmly in the identity of the rescuer, we're constantly scanning the horizon for how we can help. Because if we're helpful, then we feel worthy, loved, and appreciated, which is
Okay.
really
Sure.
what we in the rescuing world is looking for. We
Sure.
say we want to be just helpful, but if we're really truthful, it's that we want to feel loved and appreciated for our helpfulness.
And valued. Yeah. Self-worth.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Does that resonate with you when you're in your
It does.
rescuing?
Yeah. Most definitely. Definitely. So I really am wanting to get above the line here to the coach thing. So the coach is a whole different way
Yeah.
of interacting. So talk to
It's a
me a little
whole,
bit about what that looks like.
well, you've already said it. With your with your teenagers, you realized you listen. Oh, it's a rock star who can
Yeah.
deeply listen and listen, not to jump in and wait for when you can offer advice, but deeply listen to what's really going on. They constantly, how do I see the other? Do I see them as capable? And if you do, that love and that appreciation for how they're going to solve it. So the key for me is always leaving the power with the other to solve their own life issues.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, that's
So
the
you have
heart
to
of
get
professional coaching, but in relationships, it's essential that you believe in your adult children. You're going to listen to them if they ask for advice, which, by the way, my adult children now occasionally call and say, "Mom, would you coach me a little bit?" They never said that as a teenager.
yeah. Yeah.
Is
So
that
the really
helping
one of
you?
the things that's helping a lot. I think one of the distinguishing factors of the coach, the way I understand it, is the coach doesn't take ownership of the particular outcome. That
That's
they
right.
are they're not attached to it. They're really facilitating that creator role to be able to move towards what they want. They're
That's right.
not feeling that sense of responsibility.
And I
And that's when you talk
believe
about
in
stop
you.
rescuing that. Yeah.
Yes,
And I believe that you're capable of doing that.
that's right. And that may be the main thing they need to hear. Their self confidence is low. They know more about how to solve problems, how to solve issues. What do they want? But I'm always here to listen for you. I'm always listen to mirror what I'm hearing. I believe in you.
Yeah. It's so interesting because we hear about how exhausted people are and they're overworked and all that. And I just have to believe so much of this drama triangle is being played out, and people are almost really doing it to they're causing a lot of that anxiety based upon how they're falling into the cycle down below, as opposed to stepping back and saying, how might I be enabling this? In fact, Lisa talked about that, of asking, how am I enabling what's happening to play out?
Yes.
And I see this model as being a great way to assess whether you are contributing to the particular issue.
It's huge because things are so fused right now. I love that question. And it's a kind of a cousin to the question of the victim to creator shift is, what do I want? What am I contributing? What is mine to do? What is my
Okay.
responsibility? Yeah. And I
Okay.
want to cover here in the time we have list the shift from persecutor to challenger because it's a really
Okay.
big one. It's one of my
Yep.
favorites. And when we ask people which roles of the drama triangle do they most resist, again, it's easy to own that rescuer, and lots of people these days are owning, I feel like a victim. But the one that most people say they resist most is owning their persecuting, controlling side. And so the shift there to the challenger, that challenger is in us, is the one that I've said often is the truth teller, the one who's in the room, who has the courage to say what everyone else is thinking, but no one else is saying. The challenger has this will, this courage, because they're so solid in their uh, integrity and their values. And so the main question we offer to ask yourself when you self-observe you're in this persecuting, controlling mindset is, what is my intention? Is my intention to look good, to be one up, to show that I'm smart, to take charge, to dominate? Or is my intention to learn and grow from this situation and to offer encouragement and learning and growing and truth to the other? Do I tear down or do I build up? It's a very important one right now, especially as the world is facing injustice. The world is, we're facing so many complex situations in the workplace, in our homes. And together, the creator, the challenger that says, hey, creator, I got your back. We're going to do this. The strong will, it's a fiery force. And then the coach says, how are we going to do this? Let's really develop our inner agency. And so for me, rather than trying to fix the part of me that is in the drama triangle, I'm just going to dig myself deeper if I try to think myself out of that. What
Yeah.
I offer and encourage is shore up, kind of like in the leadership circle, pull up above the line of the equator of, for me, the challenger represents the top, the courageous authenticity,
Yes. I was
and
just
to
going to say,
emphasize and grow and expand our ability to be in relationship with ourself as a creator, um, that courageous truth teller, and that coach. And so with this, it's a complete behavior change model that frankly
yeah.
David kind of stumbled onto, I would say, living with him 17 years as married and 22 years as business partners. And his sudden death in April has created new partners and a whole new vision for this work. And I'm very grateful to his insights and
Yes.
to his genius.
Yes. And this is really the work that you're doing as part of the empowerment dynamic. I mean, you're carrying this forward with the continued work in the book that you wrote. It's called The Three Vital Questions that you
Yeah.
co-authored with David.
Yes,
Yeah.
and my book is the newest one in our trio of books at the Empowerment Dynamic is our website. We have
Okay.
organizational offerings. I do coaching courses. My book is called Who Do You Want to Be on the Way to What You Want? And it is a narrative. All three of them are stories. They're leadership
Yep.
narrative stories. And this is about a master coach who coaches a very headstrong CEO on how to live as a leader, the empowerment dynamic, and work with her team through the lens of the empowerment dynamic. And so it's both a coaching tips as well as how Sophia learns to coach herself in the middle of very intense coaching and leadership questions.
Yeah.
So our three books are The Power of TED, The Three Vital Questions, which is organizes the work for organizational settings, and then my book, Who Do You Want to Be, is how to use this work in a coaching framework.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to have you really button this up really quickly. So if I am in a victim, sort of, I notice that I fall into that. What's one thing that that you would challenge me to think about to move into the creator? If there was one thing as a takeaway on this whole discussion, because this has been fantastic. So what
Mm,
would you ask me? A question?
yeah, well, I
A
hear
way to
what you
think about
don't want, Tom. Oh boy, I hear what you don't want. I hear you're complaining. Yeah, what do you want?
it. Brilliant. Brilliant. I am now kind of in this persecutor. I'm really challenging my team to step their game up, and I've been criticized and I got feedback that I'm too critical, and I kind of sense that I'm in that. What's one thing that you would, because I want to get to my intentions are for the good of the team and the organization. I do want to move into that challenger. What's one thing that you might ask me
Mm,
if you were my manager and I'm trying to
yeah.
do that, or
Yeah,
coach?
well, kind of compliment you on caring so much and of being of service to the team. You know, let's talk about clarifying your intention of how you want to be with the team.
Okay. Okay. Comes down to intention about
Yeah,
what's your intended, what's your motivation behind that. And if
that's.
I'm in that rescuer, I tend to fall within that. How do I want to move into the coach? What would you challenge me to do?
Can you just give a little quick vignette of when you might step in and rescue so we could be a little bit more specific about when you overdo or.
Yes, most definitely. So one of the things where I would step in is I don't want to burden the other party too much where they're having to work weekends or whatever it is. So I'll just take
Mhm,
it on as something that I own.
mhm,
And
mhm.
that's becoming a pattern, and it's causing me to be resentful and tired. What would
And
be
what would be,
your piece of advice?
yeah. Well, we'd start with what's your fear, Tom, of letting go of worrying about them and focusing on yourself?
Okay.
I would invite you to care about yourself as much as you care about your team.
Okay. Beautiful. I think this is an unbelievable model, Donna, and this has been a pleasure to have you unpack it and describe it in so user-friendly terms that I think the application, because we've introduced some of this into our leadership work, and for all of our listeners out there, it's a simple model, but it's a powerful model. And I just love the work that you're doing, and I think continuing on in the work that David, I mean, what a gift to him, even though he's not here on earth anymore. What a gift to him that you carry on this legacy and you still have a ton of energy around this, which I think
I
is
do.
fabulous.
Well, thank you. I do have a ton of energy for it because I see the how it changes people's lives. I can tell you every week, at least once or twice a week, we get emails or a phone call of how I had no idea I'd lived my entire life in a victim mindset, in a reactive mindset. And again, the genius of David is he was able to name universal archetypal patterns in a way that accelerates our ability to self-observe. There's so many great frameworks out there. Some of them get complex. There, as you said here a number of times, there is a simplicity in this and there is a recognition in this because they're universal, these patterns. And that was the beauty and the genius of Dr. Cartman to name the reactive patterns, David named our better angels, our goodness, who we are as creative, innovative, inspiring beings. And that's where we want to live more often, with a wider depth, breadth of our creativity to bring our genius to this world. So, yes, I have a lot of inspiration for it and a great deal of gratitude that I got to spend so many years co-founder of our Center for the Empowerment Dynamic and co-lead for this work. And we have new partners now and expanding and rapidly taking this work to the world. Thank you, Tom, for your interview and for your big heart and your wonderful questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so for all of our listeners, we will capture in the show notes the book links, and we have some links that will take you to the Empowerment Dynamic Company. So check out it in the show notes. And is it okay if we actually include your contact information there as well, Donna, in our show notes? Can we add that like a LinkedIn
Yes,
sort of
the
connection there?
LinkedIn and Donna at powerofted,
Okay,
TED.com
super.
is my email.
Okay,
And sure, that's
awesome.
we're available for supporting this world in need. And we're really about, our company is really about working with people who want to create a world that works for all.
Awesome. Great. This has been a pleasure. So for all of you listeners out there, if you have enjoyed these podcasts, we ask that you subscribe and join our mailing list so you get updates on all of the work that we're continuing to do out there. And as we wrap this up, something that we share with all of our listeners, Donna, is that we challenge them all to realize the power that they bring to the workplace. And in this case, we talk about bringing the weather. Well, you bring the weather, and you can either bring the drama triangle, or you could focus on bringing that creative operating system, because that is a weather pattern that will really unleash incredible creativity and freedom and innovation. And so that's my challenge to all of you listeners out there. It's been a pleasure, Donna. Thanks for taking the time.
Absolutely. It was a delight. Thank you, Tom, for your good work too.
You bet. Take care now. We'll see you next time.